So I'll start off with our introduction. So we started this talking about this webinar feedback from the front lines, really just to kind of give you our insight as industry um, experts for what's happening as far as hiring and candidates and clients perspective. What we want to do is we want to talk about what's going to be about a 30-minute webinar with 15 minutes of Q&A. Keep it as a hard 45 minutes. And just really give you our insight of what's happening. It is being recorded, so if for some reason you didn't get the full aspect of it, we can send that to you and we'll share it on our social media at some probably in the next few days. It'll be edited a little bit, but we are really designed to kind of just give you what's happening in our perspective. These last couple of years have been wild, and so we want to kind of give you what's happening right now. And you know, we are seeing a lot of great things happen. At the same time, it's moving fast and furious. We haven't seen this kind of movement since probably 04 and 05, and it has been wild to see. So we'll start with Nadia's going to go over our agenda, and let me get over to that slide for you. And once again, we really appreciate everybody joining us. I know there's a lot of things you're going to be doing, and we're excited that we can share some great information to show you. So Nadia will give you our agenda.
Great, I will do that. And as I'm doing that, Ken, you can click because you're the host, you have to undo it so my video can go on.
Okay.
But anyways, welcome everyone. Thanks for spending your lunch with us. We're going to be, as Ken said, fast and furious, but also leaving time for questions. So this is what we're covering today. The highlights: hybrid and remote work, which is what everyone is talking about and our clients and candidates. Increase in expectations from both sides, clients and candidates. What are people looking for? Efficiency in hiring. How can you make things happen with this really quick moving market? Results-driven environment. This is going to talk about ways to manage, especially if we're linking back to a more hybrid remote workforce. Candidate-driven marketplace. That means, just like in real estate, there are more jobs than candidates. So the candidates are driving a lot of the decision-making. And who's hiring? Always everyone asks us that. Who's hiring, what companies, etc. So we will give the highlights to that. So we are going to kick it forward to the next slide. If I don't go on video, that's fine. You've got my picture there and you can hear me. So away we go.
I will take full credit of that. I do not know how to change that. So
it's okay. It's because we took the video off of all the guests. So yeah. Either way, it's the information that counts. So hybrid and remote work. This is single-handedly the most talked about, I would say, point in this new, and it's not just been, I mean, this started before COVID, obviously that kicked it into gear. Couple quick stats here: 58% of respondents of this survey done said they would absolutely look for a new job if they could not continue to work remotely. And, you know, I put that up there because honestly, that mimics what a lot of our candidate base is saying, especially ones that have been working remotely for the last couple of years. And then also up there, 4.7 million people working remotely at least half the time. So we're all aware of that. And what does that mean for hiring? The big question is that our clients are asking is, can they shift their work environment to be hybrid ultimately so they can tap into a larger pool of candidates? That's the whole thing. With such a competitive candidate market, you have to somehow cast the net wide. So yes, I guess the short answer is that's what candidates are looking for. So we see this broken down into a couple different ways. Hybrid and remote can mean two different things. We see a lot of our interior design clients open to doing remote with the caveat that the candidate needs to be able to commute or live in a commutable distance to the office, because we all know this is a creative industry. There's collaboration that happens. There's back and forth, and they want to be in a space. So we're seeing really effective hiring happening with firms that are open to having people work from home, let's say 3 days a week, come in the office for what they may call collaboration days. But then there's also 100% remote workers, and that is a client in Denver hiring a candidate in New York, for example, to work 100% remotely. That is also extremely effective. I think the big question is, can you set up and are you able to manage and have the software and technology and be able to connect with that remote worker? Because it is working beautifully. And it is something that even if you are only a 5-person firm, you have to be really open to exploring. Now, flip it just super quick onto the candidate side. There's also the assumption we often feel that everybody wants to work remote, and that's simply not true. We find not only with our clients, but we found actually internally with our team as well, given the option, 80% of our team preferred to work in-house. So when we were coming back from COVID, and this mirrors how a lot of our clients were feeling during this pandemic as well, and how to handle coming back, they found the same thing. Some people loved working remote and were super effective, and other people really wanted to get back into the office and collaborate. So the short of it is, if you are open to hybrid and remote workers, you're going to have a much larger talent pool to jump into. Ken, did you want anything to that?
No, it's so true that we're seeing a lot of our clients being a little more flexible. At the same time, candidates need to be flexible. And that's a really big thing, is that we're seeing that candidates are kind of being a little bit more steadfast and wanting to be fully remote. And yes, maybe you've been effective, during the pandemic remote, but we are seeing clients push back on that. And that's going to take away opportunities for you as well from a candidate perspective. So be mindful of that, be flexible. Know that this remote world and hybrid world is not necessarily going to go away, but it's going to continue to adjust. And I know that many of you have had great success being hybrid and remote, but we are going to see an evolution of probably more towards the real hybrid model rather than the fully remote. But that's my opinion, I should say. But just like I said, candidates need to be nimble on that and be flexible, and that opens up way more opportunities for you as well. All right.
Absolutely. So increase in expectations in this wild market. Of course, this is talked about a lot, that it's become very expensive to hire. Salary expectations are much, much higher than they have been in past years. And it's broken down to a couple different areas. We've definitely seen firsthand paid time off has become a big, where it used to be someone starting, that wasn't a real negotiating chip. I think now people are feeling the importance of balance, having time off to recharge. They're open to certainly working really hard, but they want to have that time off to enjoy. So I would say on the bare minimum, what we're seeing in offers, and this is for candidates even with 5 years or less experience, 2 weeks paid time off, plus sick days, plus the holidays. Now, in the architecture design industry, also very often that Christmas to New Year's week is one that's sort of a given that it's off. Often some companies always do it. Some people say based on business. We're seeing an expectation surrounding having that as well. So it may sound like a lot of time off to us Americans who are used to, on the scale of globally, having a very small amount. But really, it's just barely aligning with, quite honestly, a lot of other countries. And the good news is, even with the companies, we've seen many move to unlimited PTO. What they're finding is with it not being limited, that ultimately, if you have the right person in your organization, they are not going to abuse it. They're going to take the time to recharge and use it as they need. But they are not going to be taking off 3 months a year of work, because if they were, they would no longer be with your organization. So oftentimes loosening the reins a bit and being really open to being generous in that category, if you have a great team, ends up being that actually studies have shown over and over again, they honestly take off less time because they don't feel panicked to use it, or they've got an idea surrounding there's such a monetary value with companies that sometimes pay out vacation days. There's this use it or they're going to lose it. When you get that off the table, people just base it on work expectations, client needs, and take off when it's appropriate, which is a really good thing. Total compensation, yes, there is an increase without a doubt. Once again, supply and demand. We're seeing probably a 15 to 25% increase. However, there's two sides of this. One, as much as it's great that people can make a jump in their position and get a bigger increase, we're also spending time coaching our candidates that you have to be careful if there is a client out there or a company that is offering a wildly high salary and you're just seeing dollar signs. Be careful of where you may be in 2 years. I think we all know that people are working more hours, things of that nature. So yes, an increase in compensation for this market can make sense. But we sort of say the standard, a 10 to 15% increase from where that candidate is at, is fair and sustainable versus these huge numbers being thrown out for people, quite honestly, that don't have the experience to back it up. So from our standpoint, we're coaching both sides. You need to be competitive, but you also need to make sure that the employee or potential employee is looking at the long term and not just jumping because they're seeing that compensation. Healthcare, of course, has, and this is really relevant for smaller companies that may be not in a position to offer healthcare or haven't offered it in the past. This is huge. I mean, of course, coming out of, or still in, really, I guess, the pandemic, everyone, they're very aware of healthcare, the need for it, the cost of it. So we're seeing companies moving up the needle as far as if they used to offer 50% of coverage, they're moving it to 75 if they can, and many moving it to 100% coverage for employees. For small companies that maybe don't have a comprehensive healthcare plan, offering a stipend is really expected at this point. And you can offer, really, we're seeing on average, we like to give kind of hard numbers. So I think that's helpful if you are a small business owner listening to this. We see on the minimum side around $300 a month, and the average closer to $400-500 a month per employee as a medical stipend that they can then go procure their own medical, but most of it is then covered. So people are absolutely looking for that. So yeah, I would say the short answer, as we sum this up, increase in total compensation is absolutely happening. It goes in a variety of different areas where flexibility, which is not listed on there, also counts for a lot. So we will find candidates that will, if they have two offers in front of them, with one a little bit higher compensation, the other one offering more flexibility and schedule, 9 times out of 10, they're taking that flexibility as well, though. So.
Yeah. And as Nadia mentioned, total compensation is, for candidates that are listening, is you got to look at this as the total package. People get so fixated on what the salary is. And I know, yes, that's how you kind of pay your bills. But like Nadia said, if that employer is looking to cover 75% or 100% of your medical, that's a significant savings. If they have a stipend that's going to cover, for health reimbursement, and there's companies, for companies out there, you can have something called the health reimbursement account, which is basically, it allows them to take that stipend and not pay taxes on it if they're showing it's used for actual health reimbursement, everything from massage to actual prescriptions. So look at, from a candidate perspective, look at the total compensation and look at how it really benefits you in a cost savings from expenditures throughout the year. Don't just look at the salary. Yes, that's important, and I would say salaries are probably a fair increase is like 10 to 15% from where you are, based on the current market conditions. But like Nadia said, total compensation is a much bigger increase because of the healthcare being taken care of, a little bit more PTO is being offered. So look at the total compensation. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that you can get more than you have, and not just from a salary perspective, but from the total picture, which is beneficial to you in the long run. All right, and moving on to the next slide, let's talk about this ticking time bomb of being efficient in the hiring process. We are saying these days that time kills all deals to our clients. I can't tell you how many people we've talked to, clients that have had a candidate that they're really interested in, and they just moved a little too slow and that person got another offer. And it's happening a lot. So for clients out there, I think you have to really understand is that you have to be incredibly efficient in your process. Doesn't mean to not have those extra steps that you like to do. If you'd like to do 3 interviews and maybe some kind of design charrette or something like that, that's fine. Do it in a very more efficient way, combining a couple of those interviews, doing peer and team interviews, as opposed to having them meet several people throughout a week or 2 weeks process. You really have, from the moment you get that person's resume, you have about 7 to 10 days. That's it. It's happening more and more where we're seeing people that will put into an interview with one of our clients, and then all of a sudden they're interviewing on their own, and they'll have an offer within 2 to 3 days. So give I'd say comfortably 7 days from the moment you get that resume to interview that person and then make an offer. And I know that seems incredibly fast, but a lot can be done in that period of time, and you can be incredibly efficient with that. So how you do those interviews, if you have assessments, you're getting those out right away. And more importantly is taking the full opportunity to go through that process with that candidate, rather than doing short 15, 30-minute interviews, making a little more inclusive of the whole team, like I mentioned, and more importantly is getting that opportunity to really kind of put them in a scenario where they can ask a lot of questions about the environment, the culture, and the projects, process, what have you. And like I said before, multiple offers. Candidates are getting multiple offers. I would say that candidate has an opportunity to get 2 to 3 offers once they put themselves on the market. And that may not all be great offers. They may not be as good as yours, but you have to be prepared. And candidates, you have to be respectful to the process of, if you go for an interview, and you need to tell that employer, potential employer, that you are actively interviewing and that you may have opportunities, or if you do have opportunities. Because if that's an opportunity you really are feeling, and they're dragging their heels a little bit, you can nicely and professionally tell them that you would like to know whether or not an opportunity is coming, and they can give you that information, yes or no, before you just kind of, we call it ghosting, and don't say anything at all, and you're just off the market. You know, it's really important that there's a communication both ways, that you're being really upfront and honest throughout the process. We have a client that is basically said for executive level positions, they take 6 to 8 weeks. And that's really tough pill to swallow for some people, because once they put themselves out there, opportunities are coming. So, for the average position, 7 days is your window. For candidates' perspective, you be open and honest with that process to make sure that everybody knows exactly where you stand and whether or not you're interested or not. It's okay to tell someone that this is not the right place for you. You can tell them upfront about that in a nice professional way, that you decided to go take a different opportunity. But I think that having that transparency, clear communication, and set expectation. So from a client perspective, tell them that's going to take about 7 days. The process takes about 7 days based on schedules. Maybe you can do a little bit faster. And then from a candidate perspective, is that they need to set expectations that they are hoping to make a decision on opportunity within the next 7 to 10 days, whatever it is. I think that efficiency is really what a lot of our clients, we're educating our clients, and it's really worked out well to let them know that they're going against the clock, and if they're not moving quickly, that they are going to lose great candidates. Nadia, anything on that?
Yeah, I'm just going to add in, and with that efficiency, one thing that can be really helpful is making sure you have everybody that's part of the hiring process and decision making aligned and on the same priority. Meaning, if a really great candidate comes into your organization, schedules are moved so you can interview them, not, oh, well, we can't all get aligned until 8 days from now. It has to be a priority, and it shows to the candidate. They can see when it's a priority. If they come into an interview and get called back for a second interview and it's efficient and they're meeting with leadership, it helps to also get them excited. So I think what we see is the companies that are having the most success in this competitive market is where everyone's struggling against finding the right talent. So if you can make sure that when the right talent comes in your door, you have everything aligned internally as far as your process, how you handle it, how quickly, you will find that you won't miss out on it. Now, you may still be with everybody else waiting for a little bit till that perfect person comes along, but at least you're ready to go and you have a plan when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys may be hearing that there's this whole kind of thing. We're talking about things that really kind of tie back into retention, both from a client perspective to keep your talent, and from a candidate perspective is that you want to, if you're making a change in this market, any market, you want to find that next right step where you're going to have, you set up a tenure, not just a year or two, but how do you get somewhere for 5 years or longer? So we really we're trying to give you information that, one, just understand what's happening, but more importantly is how do you set yourself up so you have someone that stays with you for a while, or that if you're making that next right moves, you're not having to look for the next one out soon after that. So, and that goes to this next slide, is that, our candidates have realized that they want a balance of work-life balance, the opportunity to be hybrid. Nadia said even maybe might want to be remote. And it's been a shift for a lot of companies, is that they've been more of a time driven kind of environment. where they're expecting people to work that 45, 50 hours a week, and, and you're not doing your job unless they see your desk and I know you're putting in the hours. But that's not the case anymore, is that candidates really employees want to be judged based on the results. Because if anyone tells you that during the pandemic, that while they were working remote, they were working 40 plus hours a week, sitting at home and getting the same results done as getting results done in that time, they were doing it in half that time. They became incredibly efficient, right? They were having their early afternoon happy hours, I'm sure. My point is that they became very efficient and they can do a lot more in less time. And so they want to be judged based on the results, and things that you need to think about is not looking at 9 to 5 anymore, being flexible with hours, having set specific metrics in place to ensure that they are not being judged on how many hours they work. So when you think about, are they judged on the number of billable hours, on deadlines of particular projects, right? At the same time, candidates, you need to be prepared to be held accountable for those metrics, right? It's not just about working longer hours or putting in the time. It's about results. And so that shift in the process is really important.
Yeah, and I was just going to jump in on that. And of course, we understand certain positions that require people to be in the office, showrooms, things of that nature. But we are seeing, for example, the pushback on weekends. If you've got someone that's consistently hitting their goals, maybe there's a little flexibility about working the weekend versus, that you can offer flexibility that way versus certainly we understand those types of roles, you can't be remote. So I just wanted to add that in.
Great. Okay. All right. So let's look at this next one here, talking about a candidate-driven market. Now, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So this candidate-driven market is, as we said, that's what we're all in right now. So everything you can do on the employer side to make sure that you are creating an experience for the candidate that if they have multiple offers or they're interviewing at multiple places, that they choose you. So that, we talked about the interview timelines, getting your team together, being efficient on that. Motivators, that's really important, really understanding and taking the time to dive into that candidate, finding out why are they making a move? If they're coming from a competitor, is it because of the commission structure? Is it because they're not doing as much creative work or they're stuck doing technical? Really being able to find out why they're making a move allows you to create an offer that will be compelling and that will not be based just on the dollars. As Ken said, there's multiple offers happening. You have to move quickly. So you have to be thinking about counter offers the entire time if this is a gainfully employed candidate. So making sure you're understanding the motivators, making sure you're having the prospective employee interview with multiple people, really get to know your team. That's a huge thing. People make decisions if they can envision themselves getting up and going there every day. So yes, it's important, of course, to meet with the leader, senior management, but we always highly recommend as well to have them meet with a team. Who are their colleagues? Who the peers are going to be working with? We've had some clients that, as part of the interview process, we have one client that does wind down Wednesdays. And so as part of their process, they invite a prospective candidate in a final stage to come and sit with a team in a casual, fun environment to see that and make that connection. And by doing those steps, you find that you can really set yourself apart. So the candidate centric is also being aware of every scenario is different. So as Ken mentioned, finding out the timelines, if this is a candidate that you need to move quickly in the 7 to 10 day timeframe, then you need to adjust your schedule accordingly. If this is a candidate that's been at a job for 4 years and it's a huge deal that they're making a move, you need to add a couple steps in, meeting the team, making sure they feel comfortable. You have to really understand what you're dealing with, and there isn't one size fits all. So one of the challenges we've had during this last bit is some of our clients that have incredible work environments, beautiful projects, they haven't been in the mode of really I don't want to say wooing, but really of putting themselves on the other side. So they're operating the same way. And it may be surprising to those of you that maybe operate in a showroom business or have a lot of employees where like, how could you be dial out of what's happening in this market? But smaller firms in design, some of them, they're not hiring at the same rapid pace. So you have to be really aware of what's happening, et cetera. And so the other thing to say is that when we're talking about tying back in the compensation, a lot of our clients ask, well, how can we be so competitive when we have a current team that is making X? Well, the first thing we say is that outside of hiring new people, you really need to think about retaining your existing. So if that means you need to give raises across the board, you need to do that because you can guarantee that the firm down the street is going to be offering those high salaries. So it's better for you to have someone who's already understanding, already a strong investment. We all know if someone's been at a company 2-3 years, that's when they have the most return for the company and the most loyalty. So by investing back in them and giving those raises or creating a bonus structure or doing something that's workable in the long run will definitely save a lot versus having to lose the key employee in addition to needing to hire more for the workflow. So little things that we've done, you can even find them on our resource page on our website, but little things that we also recommend if you've had a great candidate come in and interview, send them a video message saying, God, we really enjoyed meeting you. This and that about your background really stood out. And not always expecting just the candidate to send the thank you note. It's really important for the client to send a thank you and let them know they're interested. You wouldn't believe how many candidates that we send on an interview come back and say, I have no idea if they're interested in me. I think it went well. I'm really interested. They shouldn't, if someone's great, they shouldn't leave that meeting wondering if they're interested. So it's just a bit of a mind shift. Ken, you want to add something?
It's so true. That's really important that you guys, it seems silly to say you have to woo somebody, but you woo your clients, you get your clients excited about, want to get that next project and that you're the best. You have to do that about your potential employee. You got to get them excited about that you're interested, you're excited, and you want them part of your team and going a little bit more than we're used to. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to shift the mentality going forward. Because listen, this market's not going to stay like this forever. Is it another 2 years, 3 years? Who knows? But just shifting that process so that your company continues to stand out. It's really important. What are you doing to stand out from your competitors? Because I'm pretty sure your competitors aren't going to go anywhere. So this fight for the best talent will always exist. All right. So our last slide here is we're going to be talking about who's hiring, what's happening around the country. And so I wanted to go over some of the markets that are pretty hot. So we obviously work all over the country. In 19 years of doing recruiting, we worked in just about every state in the United States, every major market, most secondary markets. And so we're seeing obviously Chicago, a lot of great things happening there, always a hotbed of action. New York, of course, Texas, specifically in Dallas, Austin, and Houston is picking up quite a bit. California, we're seeing obviously the major cities of the LA area and San Francisco, seeing some good things happen in Oakland. A little bit's popping up a little bit in the Northwest in Seattle and Portland, just a little bit. The DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area is really always a lot going on, and it's always a challenging area to find great people. But that's an area that really seems to be a lot happening. And the Northeast specifically, like New England, Boston area. So those are areas that we have a lot of action going on, just a lot of opportunities, specifically in areas of architecture, both residential and executive levels on the architecture side. Interior design wise, we're seeing really the residential market still off the charts and all across the board, but mainly the high end level. Hospitality is starting to make a real big comeback. We're seeing a lot of exciting projects that started with large resorts, and now we're starting to see some of the select service stuff come back. But those larger resorts where people are starting to travel again are starting to really pop up. And then multifamily, all your apartment complexes and high-rise condos, stuff like that are always been a really exciting time, especially now with the cost of housing. Those multifamily units are popping up all over the country. We're getting even calls from specific companies that are developers on those sides. So we're seeing a lot of stuff happening in there. And then, of course, on the builder side, we work with builders that have their own internal design and architectural teams. And, whether they're design build, And so we're seeing some really great stuff on that area too. So those are the sectors that we work in. Our company ebbs and flows, and we have to based on what the hiring is, and that's why we're sharing this with you. Pre-pandemic, we were starting to see some of the commercial areas, mixed use come up, and that's still there a little bit. But these are the areas that we're seeing as the biggest thing. We got a lot of opportunities on our website for people that are interested and want to share the information with other people. But I think we have about 115 jobs on our website, and that's not even everything we work on. But it's an exciting time. There's no doubt about it. A lot of great things happening. I think it's really important that people are, being open to, from Kenneth's perspective, open to being flexible as far as maybe where the opportunities are. And I know there's a lot of people that I talk to that are in smaller communities and they're having great success because there's a lot of opportunity. But I always look at the long play of things, right? So what's going to happen in 2 years or 3 years? Those small areas, maybe there'll still be a lot of great things happening, but do they start to change? And so by getting yourself into an area where there's a tremendous amount of opportunity and maybe some longer lasting growth for that particular type of work you like to do, it might be an opportunity to look at places like that. And then from a client perspective is look for talent that's coming from those areas, or maybe open up a satellite office. Look at places where that are within the same region. So from a time zone perspective. So there's a lot of great stuff happening on, but we wanted to give you this whole picture of what's been happening in the market. Again, I apologize for Nadia not being on video. She is here and right next to me, actually. But it's an exciting time for sure, and we wanted to just give you a quick kind of a little blip of what's happening. With that said, you guys can put questions in the chat area, and I forgot to mention that earlier. I apologize. But if you have questions, you can put them in the chat area. We can answer those. You can also email either of us at Nadia at Interior Talent or Kenneth at Interior Talent, or check out our website or our LinkedIn or on Instagram, wherever we're. Any questions you may have. If you are interested in our services, please email either one of us. Or a candidate that's looking to find a new opportunity, check out our job board. It's an exciting time. Matt?
Yeah, I think that sums it. I didn't see any questions in the chat, so maybe we'll just give it a quick minute. I was trying to think of some other things that people have been just clients calling and asking. I kind of feel like we covered most of it. One thing that I think is interesting when you follow the trends, as Ken was saying, when you're kind of looking at what you want to do long term, we're all so aware of the housing market and people having to move into what we found exciting is a lot of what we used to call secondary cities in certain markets have become primary. I mean, it's unbelievable. So many people moving out, and we are seeing in New York, I would say the last 3 months, sort of a resurgence back into the city, which has been, I think, exciting. There have been so many candidates had moved into the tri-state and outside the city. And now our New York City clients are kind of really gearing back up, which is super exciting. But yeah, it's always interesting to look at a macro level and drill it down to what's busy and, how that reflects the job market. So, yeah, so I think, I think that's probably it. As Ken said, we got a couple chats here about from a candidate perspective. Feel free to go to our website. We have tons of resources on anything you could imagine, open jobs, and anything else, you can feel free to email us directly. And thanks for spending your lunchtime with us.
Yeah, and if anybody wanted to get this recording, we're going to have it on our website or on social media. We'll make sure we can get that to you. But we appreciate everybody taking the time and spending their lunchtime with us. And we'll probably do other ones, maybe more geared towards just the candidate or just the client perspective. This was a little bit of everything since we haven't done one a little bit. Wanted to kind of give you just an overview. We hope that you got some good information and we appreciate the time. Once again, check out our website if you have any questions about us as potentially being a recruiter for any opportunities you need help with, or you can, if you're looking for opportunities as a designer or an architect, or whether you work in a showroom, because that's another thing we do is we work with a lot of showrooms of A&D products all over the United States.
And there's one question that just popped in. I'm just going to quickly address it. We talked about contract work, which is great. Have you seen an uptick for contract working designers? Yes. but not to the point where you'd say it's reflective of what's happening in the market in general. We've seen an uptick just because, quite honestly, oftentimes what we're seeing is people taking on a contract person, specifically in design firms, while they're looking for that full-time person, especially if they're having a challenge finding a candidate that really hits all of the buttons, or if they're in a secondary market, they may hire someone remotely contract. So we are seeing that more of a filling in the gap versus a long-term solution to workload. And I think that's probably because we are seeing long-term just in the technical, if someone needs to come in and just do technical drawings, et cetera. But as far as being a key member of a team, we're finding that our clients still really want to hire full-time employees. But good question.
All right. Well, with that, we appreciate your time, everybody. We really hope everyone has a good week. And if you have any questions afterwards, please let us know. But until then, thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take
Thank
care, everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.